For this Will It Run, I have a 1989 Pontiac Firebird that I purchased from an auction, as is, with no keys. It was supposed to have a clean title. Unfortunately, when I got there, the title is salvaged and I have to get a bonded title. So it's stuck on my trailer with no keys, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but GM, oftentimes you can show proof of ownership and they can cut keys off the VIN number. So that's what I had done, and I got a set of keys here. I don't know if they work yet, so I'm gonna first try the door. And oh yeah, awesome, door key works. Now for the ignition key, they can't figure out what the anti-theft palette is supposed to be. There's 15 different options for the chip, and the only way to do that is off of the original key. So I had them cut me just a blank key so I can get the ignition turned in order to turn the steering wheel and get it off the trailer, and that'll either bypass the ignition or the chip in the key, or I'll figure out what the resistance is supposed to be and have a new key cut. Most likely I'll just bypass it, but hopefully I can get the ignition to turn here and we'll be able to get it off the trailer, because right now it's stuck. And key goes in, and doesn't want to turn here. Let me reposition guys here. I don't know if that's gonna work or not. Can't tell if you can see what I'm doing here, but well, it appears that I have a door key, but the ignition key does not work. Well, that kind of sucks. All right. Well, if the key doesn't work from the VIN number, plan B is going to be, I'm going to have to get the steering wheel pulled off so that I can get down in here and get the lock cylinder out in order to unlock the steering wheel and get the shifter so I can get it out of park. So I was really hoping that key would have worked. That would have saved me a bunch of messing around. But option number 2 is going to get the wheel pulled, so that's what I'm going to do. The odometer is at 28,128, so less than 30,000 miles on this car, and according to the title I have, it has been sitting since 91. It's an 89, and it was put into a salvage title where it couldn't be licensed in 91. However, I think in 2001 may have been the last time it was running, because he did have a inspection done on it, and I found a receipt for an insurance paper that said it had insurance on it, and the odometer has about 150 miles more on it than what the title said it should have. So I think he did have it driving sometime around 2000 and 2001. So what we have to do here is get the steering wheel off so we can get to the bolt that holds the lock cylinder in. So to start, remove your centerpiece. There's a little snap ring in here. Snap ring pliers or needle nose pliers will get them off for you. And there's a bolt and the horn wire. The horn wire's got a little dot. You got to push and turn it a little bit of a turn counterclockwise, and it'll pull right out. And you got a 13/16 that holds the steering wheel on. So we're gonna pull our nut off. And there's a tool you use to pull the actual wheel off. So I'll set up here. correct bolts. Make sure you got your bolts in there a little ways and that they're even so it's not pulling crooked. Like that. And then go ahead and use your puller to get the steering wheel loose. Go ahead and take the puller out. Just like that, steering wheel is removed. Now there's a little plastic cover. You gotta get behind these little flaps with a screwdriver. There's little tabs. You use a pliers or a screwdriver and pry it off the lock plate. And this little button is what locks the steering wheel from the ignition cylinder. So what we have to do now is get to the bolt that holds the lock cylinder in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna have to pull this plate completely off because the bolt's underneath the turn signal switch. So with that, there's another special tool. You use this tool to compress the spring that pushes on the lock plate and the turn signal cam that shuts the turn signal off. And I need more tools. So I'm gonna run in. I gotta grab a small Phillips head screwdriver to get the hazard switch off because we'll need to remove that. And it looks like the steering wheel or the turn signal switch is held in with Phillips heads too. I'm gonna get a pick to remove this clip, and then this should be a Torx bit or a Phillips head. I don't know until I get it apart. Got an assortment of screwdrivers and picks here, and now this little clip sometimes takes some effort to get off. I like to get underneath it with a screwdriver or a pick, and then just get one side started. And once you get under it in one spot, just kind of work your way around and it'll pop off of there for you. And really close. There it is. Just like that. There's a little metal clip. And then your lock plate comes off, and so this clip sits into a groove, pushes on this plate, which holds this, which is the cam that turns the turn signal on and off when you're rotating, and holds your horn. This is the little piece where the horn button fit in that you had to turn out. And this heavy spring, besides pushing on the lock plate, actually holds the bearing in place to keep the steering column nice and tight. So pretty important that all goes back in the same order. All right, next I'm going to remove the hazard switch, which is a Phillips head screw. And then the turn signal switch has to be turned to the right in order to expose the 3 screws that hold it in place. Unzip these screws. And then this 4th screw is what actually connects the switch to the lever. Let me take that one out. And this little metal piece, this little wheel slides in a groove that allows the turn signal to work. And then your switch is loose. So wires run down inside the steering column. There's usually enough slack to just lightly pull on it and get it spun out of your way here, just like that. Now we got one more thing we got to remove here, which is the key in ignition switch that covers up the head of the bolt for the ignition housing. And what that is this little piece. These little contactors touch to the back of the turn signal switch, and when the key's in, it makes contact between these two and makes the buzzer sound. So with that sitting there, I have to go inside to get one more tool because it is a Torx bit and not a Phillips. We'll get that screw out and the cylinder will come right out. Let me go get that. Okay, got our Torx bit. And now we unscrew this one screw. It's kind of like a pin on a rear differential. It mounts underneath the cylinder and keeps it engaged so you can't pull it out. So because this has anti-theft, there's a couple of small white wires attached here that run through an orange harness that goes down through the steering column. That's what the anti-theft chip reads off of. So, okay, so now that I have my ignition cylinder sitting off to the side, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together because I can reach in here and I'll be able to turn the key on and I'll be able to shift it out of park. So as long as I can steer it and get it out of gear, we'll be able to push it off. And I'm gonna figure out if it runs before I spend any money on it. So I think we're gonna end up replacing the ignition cylinder. But I'm gonna cut this and put a resistor there. So either way, quick throw it back together here, and I'll probably have to take it back apart again. But we got it up to here with the Mazda pulling it because the brakes are pretty stuck or it's dragging real heavy. Two of us can't push it at all, so I pushed the pressure washer outside and we're gonna get this cleaned up under the hood, because when I opened this the other day, there's a huge mouse nest of nastiness all over the wiring in there. And before I even take this in the shop, I'm gonna quick kind of spray that all out while it's nice and sunny out and clean the engine all off. That way I'm not digging through mouse crap if I have to look at any of those relays for hot wire in the fuel pump to drain the tank, because I did take the gas cap off and boy, it stinks. All right, well, I power washed the nest all out of there and cleaned it all up, and like I expected, the mice definitely chewed through some of the wiring. There's another one down here, it's chewed in. But considering how big that nest was, I don't think they did too bad. Like the main harness going inside doesn't look like it was chewed through yet. Obviously, time will tell where else they were chewing, but that should be pretty easy to fix there. Yeah, cleaned up pretty well. We're gonna let it dry off completely because now you can really smell the mouse that I got it wet. But like I said, the inside of this car, I'm not sure where it was sitting. I got it out of a field, but when I picked it up, expecting it to stink really bad when I opened the doors, and it didn't. Actually, when they took the pictures, the window was down, so I thought the window was missing, and we had just gotten a bunch of rain that morning, so I expected the seat to be all wet. And it turns out it had window in it, and it's just a hand crank. Because when they took the picture, I saw the power window button, and I'm like, well, if they don't have power in it, the battery, because they don't have keys, I figured the window has just been stuck down in the field, and it turned out that wasn't the case. So pleasantly surprised there. However, the title's still salvage, so less of a happy surprise. But yeah, I'm gonna let it dry off, and then I'm gonna have to get a tractor or something to pull it in, because it doesn't want to roll very good. So we'll push it in and get it on the hoist and see what I'm gonna have to do to actually make this thing fire up and run. All right, so it's all dried off and I got it in here. I'm pretty sure the front brakes are sticking on. I ended up using the winch and hooking that to the hoist, and the last little bit you could feel it on the front brakes are dragging. So the master cylinder is low on fluid. Yeah, hoist is set. I'm gonna get it lifted up and look at the bottom of it and probably figure out how to get the gas out of it. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is get the fuel line coming into the filter off, and then I'll hook a hose to this and run it into a tank. And that way I can pump any of the fuel that's still in the tank into a container, look at it, see what condition it's in before I push that into the engine. So we're gonna go ahead and get that unhooked. And see what kind of condition it is. Ooh, it stinks already. Grab a container. Ooh, yeah, it's bad. There we go. Pull that apart. All right, got it on there. Okay. Hose connected, going into a tank. Next step is going to be to hot wire the pump. So I've disconnected the plug-in going into the fuel pump. And my plan is going to be to hot wire it with the booster pack. Gray and black. Gray and black makes the fuel pump run, and it did not make the fuel pump run. Let me double check the colors. Okay, well that seems to be the first roadblock. It would appear that when I put power directly to the pump does not run and pump fuel. I'm gonna rehook up the wiring and tap on the tank and see if I can't get it to go. Should be able to get a good hit out of that. I'm gonna plug you back in here. One. No. Okay. Well, probably won't run without a fuel pump. So that's not good. Well, with that quick test of the fuel pump, it lets me know that I'm gonna have to take the gas tank completely out in order to even see if this engine's gonna run. I don't have to take the tank out necessarily to do that. I can probably plumb a fuel pump in up front, separate from the vehicle, give it its own fuel supply just to see if the engine will work. But as far as the fuel system goes in this car, the pump's definitely bad. Yeah. So without the title, I'm not sure I want to spend the money on the fuel pump yet. This might end up being a parts car. Be a shame because it is so clean underneath here. But let's I'm going to move up front and I'm going to see if the engine actually rolls over or not, and see if the engine's stuck. So I know the fuel pump is for sure. Okay, so I know the fuel pump's bad. Let's see if the engine rolls over. Well, the engine seems to roll over and feels pretty smooth throughout. I can feel compression on the cylinders. You can hear it hissing a little bit. So more than likely, if I get fuel to the engine and spark, the engine will run. So the wheel that was sticking, I would definitely say the wheel cylinder leaked out into this side and got into the shoe. I did also find that one of the springs had broke off inside there, but this is the side that was dragging and the shoes just absorbed the brake fluid and got sticky. So the rest of the wheels spin free, like I said, except for up here where this is just rubbing because of where they hit that with the fork. So definitely seeing that in the front here. He never touched the front when I was there. So this must have been sitting inside a barn or in the garage and they drug it out with the fork. And they had a loader that they were using to move all these cars around. So I was kind of doing a quick once over before I let it down. Listen to this. I don't know if you can hear it crunching, but the whole inside of that hose is all like crunchy. After extensively researching the wiring diagram, I believe that this 2.8 liter engine did not have the ability to have the anti-theft system shut off the fuel injectors. So what I did here was I pulled off the kick panel. I pulled out the starter enable relay, which is kind of hidden underneath some underneath the kick panel in here. And what I'm going to be able to do is jump the yellow. Sorry, get back in here. I'm going to be able to jump the yellow wire to this green and white wire and completely bypass the anti-theft system. And this engine won't know the difference. If not, then I'll have to go ahead and put a resistor in there and fix it the way I was going to. But I'm almost positive that this engine, being that it's the 2.8 liter, does not have the ability to shut off the injectors. I did see in the wiring diagrams where the 5.0 and the 5.7 have the ability to, but I'm pretty sure they kind of cheated on the anti-theft system for the 2.8. So the fuel pump's definitely bad, but what I went ahead and did here is I connected my fuel injection kit that I had for cleaning fuel injectors. The hose is broken on it, so that's why it's upside down, so that it'll purge fuel. And I'm gonna go ahead and push some fresh gas into the fuel rail and crank it over and see if it starts. So let me get this up here. Get it up to about 40 pounds. I don't want to push it so hard that it goes past the regulator because I know my gas will end up in the tank again. But with my start relay bypassed, I do believe that we should be able to crank it over and see what happens. Oh yeah, it's gonna run. It's starting. Kind of. Maybe I could give it a little bit more fuel pressure. It wants to start. Put it up at 45 once here. And who knows with how long this thing's been sitting. Maybe the injectors are bad too. It wants to run. Oh yeah. Nope. Well, oil pressure's going up. Try again here. It's running. It's running. It starts, it runs, I have oil pressure. Well, if that gas gauge is right, there's about a half a tank of really bad fuel in there. It runs. Not obviously on its own power, because there's my fuel line completely disconnected and I got no gas coming out, but it started. I'm gonna do some more little checks over here before I start it again. Like pull the air filter out of there, make sure there's not a mouse nest in there or something that I'm sucking into the motor. Probably should have did that before I cranked it, but awesome. I think it's gonna run. Well, and so I was right to think I should probably be looking. I just found a mouse nest right inside the air filter. I don't think it's through the air filter, so I don't suck anything into the motor. But yeah, anything sitting around, I should have checked that before I started it. All right, here we are with a quick recap of what I've done so far. I did find some wiring here, which these wires actually run to the washer fluid pump, so they don't matter that much. There is a couple going to a relay down here that I'll probably obviously have to fix all the wires. The engine does run. I did find a mouse nest in the air cleaner. I vacuumed that all out. The fuel pump's bad, and the radiator, when I crushed the hose, there's a lot of like hard crusty stuff in the hoses, so I'll probably end up flushing the coolant out. The ignition system, yes, because it is a 2.8 liter, the ECM does not get a signal from the anti-theft module, so it was just as simple as bypassing the starter relay, and the fuel injectors and everything should work fine. The wheel cylinder on the left rear, well, I'm sure both of them. If I'm going to do one, I'm going to do them both. Rear brakes need some attention. That's why it was sticking and didn't want to move. Overall, car seems to be in great shape and has huge potential for being a good driving car. Tires, obviously all the tires are really crappy. I'm actually wondering if a couple of these aren't original just from how much dry rot is on them. And I found a DOT date on it that said 8, so it's possible they're from 1988. Not this one on the outside anyway, it must be on the inside. But yeah, the tires are super dry rotted, so we'll definitely need a set of tires. I'll have to find a replacement door panel for the driver's door because that did not come with the car. The headlight up here, this side, is all busted. I briefly turned them on for a second. Both motors run, but this one's obviously broken, so that'll need to be fixed. And yeah, the title. So the biggest downfall of this car is it was supposed to have a clean title and it doesn't. So I probably have a couple $100 worth of expense to go through the headache of getting a bonded title. But so far from what I can see with this car, it's totally worth putting it back on the road again. So I think we'll go through the process and start getting the bonded title, and hopefully we don't have any major issues with that. Like I said, when they did the body work to this door, one of the big things when you have a prior salvage is you have to show where the parts came from. But when he fixed it, this is still the original door. Well, the window's down. You can see a bunch of hammer marks in it where he pounded it out. Can't say he did a great job, but for what the condition of the rest of the car is, we hit that with some black primer and paint. I think this will be a decent little Firebird. Should be able to be driven back on the road again. And then whenever this engine does decide to fail, it's a rust-free body ready for a V8. Something you can make a super fun car out of. So I guess, did I check this? I didn't check to see. Okay. That was one thing I was hoping when I hooked the battery up that the rear tailgate or the latch would have worked, but apparently I'm going to have some work to do with that too because that's not working. Pretty awesome. All I had to do was adjust the button and the power lift and pull down. It's working exactly how it's supposed to. Awesome. So in closing here, we definitely need some parts and I got to figure out the title, but I think we'll have a good car. So definitely, if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button to see this thing get finished. And I have some other projects that we're going to start working back on. 66 International and the 52 Ford. The Ford's coming back in this weekend. Hopefully in the next week or two this thing drives on the road too. But not sure how long the title's going to take, so before I do much more with the car, I want to make sure I have a title. So thanks for watching, like and subscribe.